Good morning, everybody. We're going to start in probably just a minute to make sure everybody gets in. I'm Mara. I'm one of the advisors with International Student and Scholar Services. And
I am Neve Lottie. I am also one of the ISSS advisors. Good morning and welcome.
thank you for being here so early. I mean, it's not that early, but we understand that it's early for college students. So we really appreciate your being here.
Absolutely. I would be asleep if I was still in college.
Without question.
There is also a Q&A that you are able to write your questions in while we are presenting. Some questions we may not answer because they will be answered later in the presentation. So if that's the case, you will just see a response saying coming soon or will be answered momentarily. And as always, we will answer questions at the end as well.
All right. So are we ready to start? Think it's good?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think so.
All right, great. All right, hi again, everybody. I'm Mara, and today we are going to be talking about on-campus employment and obtaining your Social Security numbers. All right, so what is on-campus employment? So what qualifies for on-campus employment? These are things to keep in mind regarding that. So it's employment that is for the benefit of Penn. Your payment is going to be from Penn payroll or other compensation, such as room and board from Penn. For example, some of you have fellowships and assistantships. Those are considered on-campus employment. If you're ever unsure about something that you're considering doing, if it qualifies as on-campus employment or not, please drop into our virtual advising or talk to one of your advisors or email us. Um, the employment occurs on Penn premises. Um, it is limited to 20 hours per week while school is in session. During the summer, it can be full-time. In general, all four criteria must be met. If the employment meets some but not all of the criteria, just remember to discuss it with your ISSS advisor to see if the activity is permitted. This is a common subject that we talk about in our advising appointments, so do not be, ashamed to ask any question. All questions are good questions. All right, next. Okay, so who can work on campus? Who's eligible to work on campus? F1 students, which many of you are, you can work on campus, on the campus that the school issued their valid I-20. So you're a Penn student, so you can work on Penn's campus. If Temple University offers you a job, just because that is a college campus does not mean that you can work there. It is a different campus. So your I-20 and the employment is valid while you are attending Penn and maintaining status at Penn. And always keep in mind that maintaining status is defined as full-time study. Um, uh, you- we can go into RCLs and that kind of thing later, but yes. So full-time status for on-campus employment, and full-time status is for fall and spring semesters. So if you are full-time then and you have maintained status, you can work during the summer, even if you're not enrolled in classes. So for J1 students, you must apply for on-campus work authorization from ISSS prior to beginning employment. On-campus work authorization can be issued 12 months at a time, and students must apply for extensions as needed. This is just a little bit different requirements for J1s. All right. So is this on campus or not? A student works as a TA for a professor who teaches at Wharton. Okay. The professor is planning to teach a course at Columbia during the summer and asks the student if he will be available to continue working for him during the summer. He would like the student to serve as a TA for the course at Columbia. Is this opportunity allowed under on-campus employment for F1 and J1 students? What do you, I'm just going to say it. The answer is no, because it's not on campus. Even if you are working for a Penn professor, it's not on campus. Okay. Also, we've gotten some questions from students like if a Penn professor has a lab off campus or other opportunities, and if that can be counted as on campus employment. In many cases, it cannot, but there are some instances that maybe it can. So always, 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 if you are unsure, talk with your ISSS advisor, and we'll do all the special research and help you ask the right questions. All right. So some examples of on-campus employment are TA, RA, GA positions for Penn academic departments and fellowships, Van Pelt Penn libraries, Penn campus recreation. So that can be at either the Putruck Gym or Fox Fitness Center. Penn student agencies, Williams Cafe, etc. So these cafes that are on campus but might not go by the Penn name. The Daily Pennsylvanian, and these are just examples. There are many more, but just some things to provide for clear examples for you. All right, you can continue.
All right. So thank you, Mara, for walking us through that. I am going to now speak about what some examples of not on-campus employment are. So as you can see here, we have the red and blue call center, the Wistar Institute. A lot of people do think that that's associated with Penn, but that is not considered on-campus employment. CHOP, same thing as Wistar, Unique Advantage, Monell, Science History Institute, which was formerly named the Chemical Heritage Foundation, and other non-Penn premises. And special permission from ISSS for J1 or F1 work authorization is required to work at non-Penn sites. These special permissions kind of come into the form of CPT, so that's curricular practical training, and the off-campus at on-campus at off-campus location site as well. That is an e-form that we have that students can complete. If you think you're going to, be working at any of these places listed here, or anything that is any other non-Penn associated facilities, make sure that you're either booking an appointment to speak with your ISSS advisor or sending them an email before proceeding with accepting that position. So, as I mentioned, the on-campus employment at off-campus location. So, some centers have developed special agreements for off-campus placements using on-campus employment. Some of these are the Netter Center, the Pedal, which is for GSE students only, CHOP, where you must consult with your ISSS advisor, and the Wistar Institute, where you should also consult with your ISSS advisor. Students are required to receive special written permission to work at these sites before they begin employment. Again, as I mentioned, there is a specific form that we have that we will send to you that you will complete with your manager, and you will also complete it with your academic advisor. Once those two have signed it, and you yourself have signed it, you will send it to us at ISSS, whoever your direct advisor is. They will review it and sign off on the form if everything looks good. There are, again, special considerations when it comes to these, so you should always ask before proceeding. This is just off-campus work in general. So off-campus work will require you to get U.S. work authorization. Again, for F1 students, this comes in the form of curricular practical training, or CPT. You do this by registering for a course with your academic department. Most departments have a CPT course that you can enroll in. You are eligible for CPT after you have completed one full academic year of study. So that is 2 semesters consecutively taken one after the other. So usually it's a fall and a spring, and then after your spring semester, you are eligible for CPT that summer. You can do part-time or full-time CPT during the breaks. So that means summer. Most schools do not have winter, so you need to check and make sure if your school is allowing you to do winter or not. But summer is typically when CPT is taken. If you're doing in-semester CPT, and again, you need to check your school's CPT policies because every school has different for in-semester. That will also be part-time and no more than 20 hours per week. The other option is optional practical training. This is typically done for whenever you graduate. That is post-completion OPT. That is a separate webinar that we will have coming up soon. So make sure that you're checking our newsletters for when that webinar is happening. I believe we also had one yesterday, so that recording will be shared momentarily. We still have an option, I just want to point out, called pre-completion optional practical training or pre-completion OPT. At this time, USCIS has halted the adjudication of pre-completion OPT applications. So we at ISSS are making sure that students are aware of this so that when they decide to do off-campus work, whatever position they're going to hold could be used, CPT could be used for this rather than pre-completion OPT. Since the pre-completion is not being adjudicated, we would not advise students to apply for that at this time. However, I just wanted to make you all aware because you may see nods to pre-completion OPT on our website. So I just wanted to let you know what that was. For J1 students, you will have academic training. This is something you will again apply for via iPen. And for more information on that, I would suggest please reading on our website, or you can email your direct ISSS advisor. Again, all off-campus employment performed while in the U.S. must be authorized in advance, including remote work and unpaid positions. So even if it's unpaid and it's off-campus, you still need to have proper work authorization. Work under CPT, OPT, or academic training must be directly related to the student's major field of study. Now, this is more for you guys to make sure you're handling correctly. I don't know much about computer science, and I could read your application for CPT or OPT, and there's enough sciencey words in there for me to think that, you could work for Uber with this degree. That is for you to decide if you were questioned later on by USCIS or any other, governmental agency dealing with immigration stuff. You would be able to explain how your major relates to what you are working in, the field that you are working in. So you need to make sure that you are doing your research on that and making sure that the job you're applying for and have and working for aligns with what you have studied here at Penn. And please provide a job offer or posting and consult with your ISSS advisor prior to accepting employment. If you're uncertain about whether your position qualifies as on-campus employment, again, it's always best to check with your ISSS advisor. We cannot stress that enough, as you want to make sure that you are staying in line with the F1 regulations for on-campus employment, and if it's off-campus, that you're in line with the U.S. work authorization. So once you would have a job, the next steps you would do for your on-campus employment, is you would go to onboarding at Penn. As you can see here, the instructions for onboarding at Penn is available at the link. If it is the student's responsibility to keep their hiring department informed of any changes to their immigration status. So F1 students cannot continue working on campus after their I-20 end date. Once that end date has been reached, you are no longer eligible for on-campus work, so please keep that in mind. J1 students cannot continue working on-campus employment once the date on the ISSS signed J1 on-campus employment form has expired. So notice that's different than your DS 2019, so make sure you're checking the J1 on-campus employment form. Once that date has been reached for J1 students, you are no longer allowed to work on campus. If you are being paid by Penn, so you're on Penn's payroll, you will need to have a social security number. The temporary number that Penn issues you is not your social security number. I believe that appears in Workday, and a lot of students do seem to think that that is their social security number because why wouldn't you? That makes sense. The number's there. However, that's not what it is. So you will probably have to get that. You will have to get that in order to make sure that you can be paid by Penn. You can still work. You're allowed to work, usually. Check with your HR department at Penn while you're waiting for the Social Security application to be processed with the Social Security Administration. So you want to make sure that you're checking with your HR department first to make sure while that application is pending, you're still able to work for them. Okay. So this is a case study. So this is work after graduation. A student works at the Penn libraries during their senior year. Their supervisor asks if the student can continue working for the summer to help them with a special project. The student is planning to graduate in May, that should say 2026, and their I-20 will expire May 19, 2026. Can the student keep working in the summer? No. The student can't work because students are only eligible for on-campus work while they are enrolled in their academic program. F1 and J1 students should consult with ISSS to see if they can apply for another type of work authorization for employment taking place after graduation. Please note that CPT, OPT, and academic training all require any work to be directly related to the student's major field of study. Typically, work after graduation is in the form of OPT. So you want to make sure that you have that and you are applying for that prior to your graduation. For Social Security number, F1 and J1 students are eligible to apply for a U.S. Social Security number if they have a future or current employment. When I say future, that means you have employment that will begin in at least 30 days. So you can apply for a Social Security number up to 30 days before the start of your employment, as long as you have an appropriate employment offer letter. Documents required for this are the on-campus employment form signed by the hiring department. We must have a wet signature. That means they must physically sign the form. The SSN support letter from ISSS, which you request through IPEN under the Student Services tab, must also have a wet signature on the letter. Once you get that on-campus employment form signed, you will upload it in the SSN support letter e-form in IPEN. That's how we know you have secured the document, and we can now print out and sign the wet signature for the SSN support letter from us here at the office. You will need immigration documents, including your I-20, DS 2019, F1 or J1 visa, your passport, and I-94. The I-20 or DS 2019 is allowed to be digitally signed, but students do need to print it out and sign it themselves as well. Again, these required documents may vary if applying based on off-campus work. So that means making sure you have an employment offer letter for that 30 days before your employment begins. That is what you will need in order to apply if you're doing off-campus. So please consult the ISSS website for more information. The on-campus employment form is found on our website under the SSN page. It's a great page. I really highly recommend please reading through that page. If you have questions, then you can email your ISSS advisor, but that page is very well laid out. And just so you know, you must now schedule an appointment through the SSA.gov website and finish the appointment at the SSA office. So we have that information listed there for the Philadelphia office. They no longer accept walk-ins, so please make sure that you have an appointment booked before walking in. All right, and I'm gonna hand it back to Mara.
Thank you so much, Neve. So there was just one question I want to make sure about the Social Security number. So when you get your job offer and you need a Social Security number, your department is not going to be giving you that form. I just want to reiterate what Neve said, that you can find that form on the International Student Scholar website, Penn's website, for to get your signatures from your department, and then you do the e-form. Thank you so much, Neve, for all of that information. It was so thorough and helpful. So handling practical matters without your social security number. So opening a bank account, off-campus housing, PA driver's license and state ID, and Pico Energy Company. Um, so these are all things that sometimes might be difficult without a social security number. But what I will say is that all of these things, if you have your valid I-20, and sometimes a letter from us, then that is oftentimes sufficient for doing all of these things that are necessary to be done. So you don't need a social security number for these things. You need the social security number for employment. And again, always talk with an advisor if you're having any issues dealing with these types of things. Okay, so special considerations. An SSN is required for tax purposes if you are employed in the US. So a lot of students, especially right now, are asking about tax questions, whether they are employed or not employed. But it's really important to realize that ISSS we are not tax experts. And for that reason, do not give tax advice. So, but we can send an email with tax information and access to non-residential tax software in late February, early March. A lot of you have probably already received and hopefully have been in some of the webinars with Sprint Tax from this email with the information that we're talking about right here. Okay. I'm sorry, I just wanted please check. Yeah. Please check with your hiring department for any additional requirements to start working. Some departments have additional requirements other than what Neve went over so beautifully, but there might be more additional requirements. So always just ask questions. Again, there's only good questions, so always feel free to ask them or any of your advisors at ISSS. Um, so when in doubt, please check with ISSS first. And also, I know when I talk to a lot of students, they don't utilize our website as much as they could to answer some questions. And we're happy to answer your questions. But if you feel like you're in an emergency situation, rest assured that if you go to that website, a lot of your questions will be answered and it will help make you feel calmer in situations that feel like emergencies and maybe you can't get in touch with anybody.
Absolutely. We also record all of these sessions, all the different webinars that we have. You can see here, we just popped in a link for the Sprint Tax webinar, which will be held on Friday, February 20th, 2026, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Highly suggest going to this if you
Hmm.
have tax questions. We also will record all webinars that we have this semester and upload them to our website. So again, like Mara said, if you feel you're in an emergency situation, sometimes the questions you may have would have been answered in one of these webinars. So it is worth going back and watching them again to make sure, you're following instructions correctly, you're following the regulations correctly, all of that good stuff.
So I don't see any other questions in the chat. Are there any questions that anybody has that we can answer? No? All right. Well, it was great being with you this morning, and I hope this was helpful. And as we said, feel free to contact, us, your advisor, or any of the virtual advising
Mhm.
for your ISSS questions.
Absolutely. Thank you all again for attending, and I wish you a great day and rest of your week.
All right. Bye-bye.